Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about why you should not be a full-time photographer. So we're not even 30 seconds into this video, but I know that some of you have already given me a thumbs down. That's totally fine. I realize my stance here is controversial, and I think it's okay if you don't agree with me. In fact, I think it would be wonderful if I was wrong. I would love to be wrong about what I'm about to tell you. But if there's one thing I try to be, it's honest. And when a young man reached out to me on Instagram to ask me my thoughts about him studying photography in school with the intent to become a full-time photographer, I became Andrew, crusher of dreams, and told him that while there really isn't anything wrong with pursuing a dream, if he were my son, I would attempt to persuade him to pursue a different career. Now, by this time, a few of you, if not all of you, are getting worked up, and that's because we've all heard these speeches, these acceptance speeches, or biographical tales from successful people about the speculative naysayers in their lives. These are the people that everyone who ever achieved their lofty dreams in the face of overwhelming odds will say they did not listen to. And they say they were these terrible voice of negativity along their path of inevitable glory and greatness. Okay, yes, I admit that I am one of these people. I'm one of these brutal realists who doesn't believe that there's some sort of pot of gold at the end of most people's personals somewhere over the rainbow. But I'm not saying that if you wanted to make it as a photographer, you wouldn't be able to. It is possible. It's hard, but it is possible. I'm not saying you can't do it. Most likely, if you do, you're going to need to do the type of photography that you don't necessarily love. For instance, if your passion is landscape photography, you should probably know that there's very little money in that. In fact, I don't know any, except for very few, who are making it full-time on their actual landscape photography. One in particular I know has a gallery just outside of Zion. And when he first started, he spent far more time going door to door, office to office, attempting to sell his prints than he ever did actually doing photography. And as far as landscape photography goes, well, that was just something he did on the weekends. Chances are you'll have to do whatever it takes to pay the bills. And for many, that means graduations, weddings, babies, headshots, if you're lucky, that sort of thing. And then, you know, eventually you'll start making connections and you can do studio work if that's what you want to do, fashion and whatnot. But that's many years down the road usually, until you're able to start standing on your own 2 feet with photography and doing the kind that you really want to be doing. So yes, I mean, if you're persistent, if you really want it, if you know how to hustle, chances are you'll find a way to make a living doing what you really want to be doing full time. But in the meantime, consider what it will be like if you're a wedding photographer, for example. Consider shooting a 12-hour wedding on a Saturday, coming home knowing you've got one free Sunday before you have to go back to work, you know, your weekday job, which might be waitressing or something like that. You have one free day that Sunday, but you're just exhausted. You just shot photos for 12 straight hours, and now the last thing you want to do is get up early and go out and take more photos. Photography can easily start being something you resent. Rather than a release or a creative catharsis, it can become a shackle that holds you down. It can become a far cry from that romantic, nomadic, adventurous life that you thought it would be when you started. So you might be wondering what this little road trip is about that I'm on, where I'm going, and I will get to that, but first I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I am not a professional full-time photographer, and I have not been one, but I can tell you one thing I know without a doubt. Had I discovered how much I love photography in high school or college, I would have jumped headlong into that career. In fact, it wasn't until 2013 my wife sent me to Best Buy on a Black Friday to pick up our first real camera, the Nikon D3500. Of course, she never did read the manual, and the perfectionist in me just simply could not allow us to spend that sort of money on a nice camera only to shoot in auto mode. So I decided to figure it out for myself so I could teach her how to use it. A few exposure triangle diagrams later, and I was completely hooked. The geek in me loved the gadgets, the UI of the camera, calculating the depth of field, learning about the various focal lengths, and my more creative side basked in a new way to see the world, how to analyze light and shape, and how to capture a story frozen in an instant. By this time in my life, I was enjoying an excellent career as a software engineer and a user experience designer. We had 2 children. I owned a house and 2 pretty not bad cars. We had all the food and clothes we needed, and I didn't really have to look at the bank account between paychecks very much. We were living the American middle class dream, and what that meant for me was low stress, leisure time, and expendable income. Fast forward just 5 years and we're still living that dream. The only difference is now I work remotely for a really cool startup in San Francisco. I still enjoy the benefits of low stress, leisure time, and expendable income, but now we can really add to that flexibility. We go on lots of adventures because during the day I really can work from anywhere as long as there's internet. And beyond that, we do take on jobs. Danae and I do portrait photography on occasion, and I also do some video work for some cool companies when I have time. And of course, we make money from the YouTube channel. Now, the money from all these sources, they're not great alone, but combined, it's actually money that you can start to shake a stick at. Certainly, it's money that my college self would have loved to survive on.
So guys, I'm not telling you this so that you think I'm cool. I mean, I am pretty cool, but that's not why I'm telling you all this. It's because I want to paint a picture of 2 potential ways you can run a career. On the one hand, we have a professional photographer who actually isn't really doing much of the type of photography they dreamed that they would be doing until much later on in their career, and in the meantime has to suffer through a lot of crappy work and jobs that they probably don't really enjoy all that much. And on the other hand, we have the user experience designer. He compromised by not taking that dream job, but it ended up being a job that supported he and his family really well. He enjoys his job. Not only does it pay the bills, but it gives him very low stress, leisure time, discretionary income, and flexibility. Those 4 things that I mentioned earlier. And with those 4 things, he can explore whatever photographic muses that he chooses, and has even found a way to get paid for it. I'm not really sure why I'm talking in third person right now.
So those are the 2 potential paths. Again, I've never been down the first path, so I can only speak about what I've seen, and it may be that you'll love treading that path. And maybe you'll be one of the very few who finds instant fame and fortune and spends every single day of your life exploring exactly the kind of photography that your heart of hearts desires. But for the 99% of the rest of you who will not experience that, I hope you might consider an alternative. Which brings us to where the heck am I driving to? Well, I'm glad you asked because it ties in nicely to what I've been talking about. I'm headed to Salt Lake City to an event at Overstock.com to speak, and my talk is all about doing user experience design remotely from home. More and more software-related jobs are going to be done from home in the future, and I'm going to talk to a bunch of people about how they can transition from doing this sort of work from, an office to work from home. So I hope you enjoyed this. I recognize that not everyone is going to need the same thing in their life. What I've done might not necessarily be the best thing for you. We're all special little snowflakes. We all need different things out of life. But I really do think this is something that a lot of you should probably consider. All right, well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I recognize that not everyone's going to agree with me, and that's fine. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember, kindness before cameras. We'll talk to you guys again real soon.